On August 20th, Officer Jeff Nelson, the murderer of Jesse Sarey, was charged with murder for the murder of Jesse Sarey. A press meeting was held in the backyard of Elaine Simons with Katrina Johnson and Sonia Joseph.
Advocate for something like this. I never thought that I would be going out into the world and telling such personal stories. However, if I did not have the support of Not This Time and families are there on the front line and other impacted families, I do not believe I would have had the courage to stay in this fight to today. And so we are very, very happy. And I have bets out with a lot of people. I think I'm going to have probably 10 bottles of whiskey coming that way. I'm just joking.
We're going to celebrate today.
Yeah.
This is a win.
This is a win.
There's a long road ahead, but this is definitely a win. I know that when I heard the news, I was like yelling and screaming in my living room. You know, although it is bittersweet for Sonia and I, it is definitely a win.
And then that was it. It was like, which family is going to be the one that is going to be the one that breaks this horrible, horrible pattern out there where that it's justifiable. So we're all in it together, and yeah. Any other questions?
Can I follow up on that? So you said you talked to his family, right? His mom, right?
I was with them yesterday.
You were with them. What did they say to you? You know, like what was the conversation with them? I guess I want to hear about their reaction as well.
I think you'll learn their reaction on Monday. I've always been bad at doing, I'm a first, I don't like to speak for other people. I've never been very good at that. All I could tell you is that there has been a ripple effect. I've been getting texts from different family members. He has over 26 cousins. So like one young lady had no idea, and in walks her staff, and they're like, did you hear? Did you hear? And the whole place just started cheering. People have been following our family's case for over a year and 3 months. And so it's a ripple effect. And you know, some people are just learning today that Jesse died. This is the reality of homelessness, okay? And I'm gonna get a little bit on a soapbox, but when a homeless person dies, they are insignificant. They are not human. And so even though he was homeless, does not take away that he was human and loved, and his family and it was still intact. We still had communication and interactions with him. And that is something really important when we talk about this narrative. Know that he's looking down and he's like, yes, thank you. Thank you for not stopping and fighting for this.
When I first found out, I was crying. I've been crying all day.
He has a badge, and he has killed 3 people and has all these excessive use of force complaints and has still not been arrested. I find that to be a little bit atrocious because he is actively out there in our community, and we should all still be scared that a serial killer walks free. Although he has charges, I bet anybody else would be locked up without a bail waiting for trial.
And that's, I mean, and I really can't answer on that. You know, I don't understand some of that stuff. This is all new to me. So when we heard that, we'll find out Monday.
Do you want him arrested? Is the question.
What?
Do you want him
Yes.
arrested?
Oh, yes.
So as of right now, forgive my ignorance, but again,
This is me personally speaking.
right, the prosecutor is saying he's not behind bars, not in
I
custody,
know.
so he's out. Is that your understanding as well? Just to be clear?
I haven't seen anything. I taught, and then this happened, so I haven't even read anything. So some of this is news to me, actually. So I would want him arrested behind bars. He does not need to be out there.
And my quick follow-up is we went back to the Auburn community today, and this issue really divided the community in many ways, and we're hoping this is the first step in healing. At the same time, I'm sure there are many people out there who are doubting Jesse and what actually happened here, and we're siding with the police. And again, no,
That's gonna happen.
Nothing. Again, this still needs to go through a long, lengthy process. But I'm just wondering, how did you deal with that? How did you deal with folks who were criticizing Jesse and were pro-police?
We're gonna deal with it. I've worked in the homeless industry and with people that have been criminalized and victimized over and over. And I'm sorry, if you're unjustifiably killed, people are gonna go out and try to make this Jesse into something else. And that, you know, people they have their free will to do that. All we could do is continue to show love, show that this was a young man that had a life ahead of him, and that he fell through some systems. And so we need to look at not only fixing the police system, but perhaps taking a look at the mental health system, taking a look at the foster care, the homeless system, every single system, the school to prison pipeline. I mean, this is not just about, even though it is about him being killed, it's also about all those other systems. And so we really need to focus on
all the systems that were
Yeah.
in place that failed Jesse along the way.
Along the
that
way.
led to this point to where he can be.
Why do you have to step in?
It was not a 16 years relationship. We're a very unorthodox foster family. I am not. The journey of Jesse is a journey of a young man who had some situations that had come along on his journey, and I don't really want to talk too much about that, but I do want to let you know that just because a person is out there homeless does not mean that they do not have family contact. He still was involved in 4th of July and came to some family functions and other funerals of family members. We've lost probably 8 family members in over the last 17 years within the Sarey family. So this death is not new to them, and it should not continue to be in their lives. So, but about Jesse, he was really into wrestling. He loved the WWE, and I took him and his brother Terrell to a WWE match. And in this back room was their bedroom, and I heard loud noise, and I come running down, and they were wrestling and broke the futon. And I was like, oh well, I can't get mad at them. I took them to a wrestling match. You know, he was into breakdancing. He loved Naruto. He had the funniest, weirdest laugh. Even in his worst moments, in his most saddest times, he always had a smile on his face, and he always, anyone that you will talk to that had encountered him in his journey out there would say this was a pleasant person. He was never someone that was doing anything to cause problems. He usually would just sit back and kind of chill, just like he was chilling on the day he died in front of the ice machine. He was already de-escalated. And, you know, he was very much loved. Anybody else? Yeah.
Actually, before we continue on, I just wanted to address the question that he asked earlier about supporters of law enforcement, and they believe a particular narrative. You know, it's very disheartening because anytime there's an officer involved shooting, the narrative is always pushed out, and the narrative usually is false, number one. Number two, the narrative dehumanizes, criminalizes, and villainizes the person that's killed. So, you know, there are a lot of people out there that are going to believe what is pushed out there. And it's unfortunate that, you know, families have to fight for a narrative and support the fact that their loved one was human.
And it's really not, you know, us versus them. I don't think any of us up here are anti-cop. We are just pro-community. We want the folks in our community to be safe.
You guys have each mentioned that today is a win, and you guys have been battling this system and this issue for well over a few years. Jesse's case for over a year. What does today mean that all that battling hasn't been taken for granted? It's actually leading towards something, and that in the rest of the war you guys are fighting, that this is a battle won, and you guys are winning certain things, and it's possible to continue to do so.
So what I mean when I say this is a win, it's a win because we've worked so hard, and because at Washington State there has never been an officer prosecuted for murder. It's a win because the work that we've been doing with De-Escalate Washington 940 we can see that our work is they're starting to implement the things that went into law, and it's finally showing the results of that.
We're in the midst of a paradigm shift, I would say. And I think that this is just part of that paradigm shift. And I would hope that more families will end up getting the same sort of kind of justice and going down the road that Elaine is headed down, as opposed to where the Charlene Lyles family is and the Giovanni Joseph family is. And we're hoping that some of the other things that are being implemented, like independent investigations and things like that, will help foster better relationships with police and folks in the community.
And you know what's really cool? We wrote our petition, and one of our demands was about the arrest and taking care of business. And so that's a win for the people who wrote the petition, for the thousands of people that have now signed it, and I'm sure right now it's getting action. We had 400 when we first started. After our first rally, it doubled. By the time we had another rally last week, it tripled, and now it just went over 2,000, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but for Jesse Sarey, who didn't exist in anyone's name. And so to have that go forward, and we're now going to revisit our demands. We're probably going to change up some of our demands because we're realizing there are some things happening, like you mentioned, that in Auburn, that maybe we could start figuring out a way to heal that community. We don't want to hate on Auburn. They came out and supported us twice at 2 rallies, and they have shown that they care about this. And so we want to let the people of Auburn know that we don't want them to feel alone, that we're not out to say that that whole city is horrible, because I have friends that live there, and she lives there, so yeah, I have a friend that lives there. So, we're about, my family, we're about healing. And earlier, Katrina mentioned about cops. I mean, I'm going to tell you, and I've never told this publicly. So, on the day that Jesse died, I have 2 cop friends I've worked with that both reached out to me immediately with their sadness, and they even reached out to the family because they knew the family. So that to me tells me a lot. And one of the cops was one of those shop with a cop things back in the day, and the boys hated it. They're like, "You're making us shop with a cop?" Well, that shop with the cop showed true colors. Is that called shop with a cop?
Elaine, can you do me a big favor?
Yeah, I'm a little excited. Sorry.
No, you're fine. It was just a year ago. It's June.
Yeah. Actually, May 31st. We had the wrong date. We weren't notified until June 1st. He was unknown on May 31st.
You said you wanted to send a text out to the family and get one response back. And so then you started to know you did the family check. You said everybody started checking when you hear like a
What
job
happened
job.
was,
I'm just curious if you can think back to what has just only been about a year ago, the feelings, your emotions, some that you had in your home, that you took to events for wrestling. You said more than a decade with this family, someone that you helped raise. And at that moment when you found out you wouldn't see that person again, till now, you helped me to understand your
well,
emotions.
during the weekend, it wasn't necessarily him. It was because I've had over 42 deaths in my own professional life. I've worked with the homeless community for over 30 years. And so I always do safety checks whenever there is a murder or unidentified body out there. So when I heard that they didn't know who this was, my safety check went out to my social media, to Peace for the Streets by Kids from the Streets, and I said, safety check. And then on the next day, on the 31st, on the June 1st, because that's when I thought he died, I get the first phone call from Sarey family, and they said, "Have you seen the news all weekend?" And that is when I was like, boom.
How did you feel?
The first thing I said was, who? I had no idea. I mean, it's a big family.
But
So
emotionally, your heart.
in my heart,
It was Jesse.
it just, when I found out it was Jesse, it broke my heart, because that was a young man that still had potential. That was a young man that I think I failed maybe in some ways, I mean, he didn't stay in my home like his other brother. His other brother aged out of my home, and he's doing really well in his life. So you can see the difference of a child where interruptions of placement, in Jesse's case, versus one that stays in the home and ages out, what a difference that can make.
It's a hard one.
It is.
And now it's just been a little more than a year. How are you feeling now?
I'm excited. I'm happy for the impacted families. I'm happy for the Sarey family. I'm happy that we're now going to see how a system can maybe move forward and do something right. Even if it doesn't turn out the way we hope at the end, you know, we're going to be prepared. But we've got another, probably like a year ahead of us. Remember, we're in the middle of a health crisis. So court systems and back, everything is going to take its own time. It's going to be a really, we've got to get ourselves ready. But I did announce it to my students today. I told them I was going to be absent yesterday, and I said I'm going to come in with good news. And the minute each of my classes came into my classroom through remote, they're like, Miss Elaine, don't you have some good news to share with us? And you should have seen them. They cheered. It gave them hope, because every single one of them are locked up right now in the King County Juvenile Justice Center. And what this does is show that even their lives are not insignificant. And if I'm a true advocate and a teacher and someone who believes in who I am, then I will not stop this fight. And I won't stop it. Even if we get a victory and win, I'm still with my other families for their journey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Whew. You guys can take your own time. We're going to sit down and relax for a minute. If you have any individual questions, feel free. Sorry?